Zimbabweans living in South Africa have marched today to their country's embassy in Pretoria. They were protesting against the recent election results, which confirmed victory for the ZANU-PF and a second term for President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The results were largely criticized by independent election observers, including from SADC. There were also calls today for the embassy to be shut down, with claims that it does little to serve the migrant community in South Africa. For more on this, let's speak to one of the organizers of the demonstration, Tino McLean. Tina, very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. So what were you hoping to achieve ultimately with your march in Pretoria today?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. You know, like our march, we wanted to send a message back to Zimbabwe because, like, we want a change in Zimbabwe. Like, we are suffering here in South Africa. We are sick and tired. You know, like, we went to Zimbabwe, we vote for change. We vote for change, and everyone vote for opposition party. So, like, how come ZEC announced that Mnangagwa won the election? How can he win? Now we are suffering here in South Africa. So, like, what we want to send a message to Zimbabwe, to Mnangagwa, to everyone who is there, that, like, here, we want a change. We want a better Zimbabwe for all.
How do you do that, Tino, by marching in South Africa? How do you effect change back home when you're marching from Pretoria and we're not seeing the same level of demonstration within Harare or some of the other centers in Zimbabwe?
Okay, you know, my brother, let me be clear with you. You know, in Zimbabwe, we don't have a voice. We don't have a voice. Like, you know, there is a police brutal, you know, like, you can't say anything. In Zimbabwe, we don't have a voice. You know, like, when you get there trying to demonstrate in Harare, you get arrested. So, like, what we are trying to do here is we are neighbor, because, like, you know, we are ashamed about President Ramaphosa. You know, like, you see the problem of Zimbabwe, like, here, how are we suffering in South Africa? How can he go to Zimbabwe and endorse Mnangagwa? Because, like, you know, like, he must help us to change the situation back home. Because if he don't help, if he endorse Mnangagwa, we're going to come here with extended family. And you guys mustn't arrest us because we are looking for a better life.
But two things I want to pick up on then. You say, how did President Ramaphosa end up in Zimbabwe? He was there this week for the inauguration of President Mnangagwa, the ZANU-PF. Even President Mnangagwa himself have said that anyone who's got an issue with the credibility or the legitimacy of the election outcome should challenge it through the courts. We now are getting indication that the leader of the Triple C, Nelson Chamisa, is not going to go the court route this time. How effective will these other measures be? Should Chamisa have gone to court, and is there room for anyone else to go to court to mount a challenge against this election outcome?
Okay, you know, in Zimbabwe, courts are captured. Court is ZANU-PF, and ZEC is captured. ZEC is ZANU-PF. So there is no reason for him to go to court, because when he got there, they're gonna say, because, like, how can you challenge people who create the system? You know, court of Zimbabwe are ZANU-PF. So there is no use for him to go there. So like, now we are waiting for SADC to their response. And we're not going to stop, because we need a better Zimbabwe. We need our freedom back in Harare.
Do you really think the likes of President Ramaphosa and the broader SADC community will respond in your favor, given that he's already attended this inauguration and it appears for all intents and purposes that life in Zimbabwe is moving on with Mnangagwa and the ZANU-PF still firmly in charge?
Yeah, they are still in charge, but us, we have to do something as citizens so that we can challenge it, that we don't want them, because we cannot sit like another 5 years folding our hands. You know, like, how many, like, you know, like you said, brother, I want to tell you something. You know, like, we have brothers and sisters, you know, they get killed, they get raped, they get robbed trying to cross the Limpopo River. So, like, we cannot continue with that situation. What we want, what we demand in Zimbabwe, we need fresh elections. We need fresh elections so that we can start again. We don't want ZEC there. We need AU and SADC to represent Zimbabweans.
Can you get that done, though, Tina, with demonstrations happening in neighboring countries and perhaps even abroad, when domestically, as you were saying, there basically isn't room politically for people to express themselves, perhaps in the way that you are doing in Pretoria, from the safety of Pretoria?
Yeah, like, in Pretoria, you know, like as I said before, like, our mandate was to send message to Zimbabwe government, like, to know that what they did, we don't like as Zimbabweans. So, like, we sent the message, we went there. Unfortunately, they couldn't come, they closed their gates, but wow, we can't stop now. As I said, like, we're still gonna do some more demonstrations.
Zimbabweans have long been dissatisfied with the response from the African Union, from SADC, and even those SADC observers in this election had themselves raised questions about the running of the process and its credibility. All is moving on, as I was saying earlier. Why do you think they would go as far as supporting what you are saying when we've not seen them take that position in the past?
I think this time it's different with SADC. If you see it's the first time SADC to say these elections in Zimbabwe they were not free and fair. You understand? So we are hoping SADC they're gonna help us to achieve this mission because we want a better Zimbabwe. That's all I can say.
So where to next? One demonstration is hardly going to make much of a difference. What needs to happen beyond this point? Yes, you want AU and SADC leaders to take notice of your call, but it's going to take more than one demonstration to get their attention, and B, to actually have any hope of getting another election, a rerun in Zimbabwe, when both the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and the ruling ZANU-PF say that all was above board.
Yeah, all we can say now, brother, we are waiting for report from SADC, they were saying yesterday. So we are waiting for ZANU-PF to go to Gaborone and challenge SADC. Then from there we see how we do. But one thing I can tell you, we're not going to stop. What we want is freedom to say.
And you said earlier, Tino, that if there isn't intervention from the likes of South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, more Zimbabweans are likely to come here. Is that the sense that you're getting from your fellow countrymen, that many of them are now looking to leave Zimbabwe for pursuit of a better life elsewhere, i.e. in South Africa?
Sometimes if they not support us in Zimbabwe, obviously we're gonna come here, we're gonna stay here, and police they're not gonna arrest us for anything. We are going to stay until they make things right in Zimbabwe. Because how can you say Mbalula say he faced Mnangagwa congratulations, President. How can you do that? We don't want that. If they continue to do what they did, we're gonna call our extended family to come here in South Africa and we don't want to be. And one thing I can tell you, all immigration officers, you mustn't arrest us. If you want to arrest us, start arresting Ramaphosa.
But you'd be breaking South African law, Tino, if you did that, because you're of discontent back home. That does not then give you the right, as a Zimbabwean national, to violate South African law, because ultimately the election is primarily a domestic issue, so no other country should have to bear responsibility or have to take on a resistance by Zimbabwean nationals who say, well, we'll just come to your country and you can't do anything about it, because the law does empower this country to deport any Zimbabweans who come here illegally.
I understand, my brother, we will be breaking the law now. Listen, us, we want to be in Zimbabwe. That's first thing. We don't want to we don't want to stay in South Africa. Life is very, very difficult for Zimbabwe in South Africa. So what we want, we want Ramaphosa to help us to engage the situation back home, and so that we can come with a solution. Because look here in South Africa, it's all over Zimbabwe everywhere. It's all over Zimbabwe everywhere. So it's very, very sad. So one thing we want to President Ramaphosa, let him do the right thing. Let him do the right thing.
Tina McLean, good to speak to you.
Good.
One of the march organizers, they demonstrated in Pretoria today.